Alright. General purpose to inform. After listening to my speech, my audience will learn more about China and its culture. Imagine taking a trip to China and seeing its rich culture all around you, from busy markets and beautiful landscapes. I will be telling you about China and its strong culture. I became interested in China after watching several cultural videos about it, focus on it. As an Hispanic American, I was curious to learn more about cultures outside of my own. First, I'll tell you about the overview of China's cultural aspects. Then, I'll tell you about their unique communication behaviors. Lastly, I'll tell you about a current event going on there. Let me begin. There are many cultural factors that help shape China as we know today. When it comes to general attitudes, according to the 2025 Culturegram's online World Edition's entry on China in the section General Attitudes and Costumes, the Chinese are known to being hospitable yet reserved. Confucianism plays a strong role in shaping social values and encourage respect for authority and group-oriented mindset. In addition to Confucianism, Guanxi is also a cultural concept which refers to a network of relationships based on trust and mutual help. Violating Guanxi can harm one's reputation, which signals how it's closely tied to the Chinese culture. Chinese are also expected to uphold their family's social standing. They do so by performing successfully in the academic and personal presentation. In terms of religion, China allows freedom of speech, but religious activities publicly are restricted. Taoism, which started in China, teaches peace, balance, and harmony with nature. In smaller towns, people follow local religions that mix Taoism, Buddhism, and ancestor worship. Now that I've told you about the cultural overview of China, let me move on to their communicative behaviors. The people of China tend to communicate with each other in a greater scale in hopes of achieving greater things. According to Gert Hofstede's research on the page What About China and the Culture Factor last updated in 2025, China is 43% of the individualistic aspect, while the US lands on 60%. The lower number of China signals a greater approach to a collective society, that of compared to the US with a 60%. In China, there is a common practice where people put their group, especially close connections, first. Jobs and promotions in China often come from personal connections. They prioritize those personal connections, which which allows loyalty to be strong toward those relationships than the organization itself. With the U.S. having a higher score, it limits the number of opportunities available for its citizens to seek open-minded people. When the citizens of China take advantage of being able to reach out to others. When communicating with one another in tough circumstances, there is a 30% of uncertain accidents in China, with it being 16% less than the US. With their low score of 30%, China's culture tends to be more comfortable with uncertainty. People are less anxious about the unknown and are open to flexibility and adapting to change rather than just following rules. People often rely on context and relationships to guide decisions. These decision-making methods allow for a closer approach to results, leaving most businesses to be family-owned and are easily able to adapt to changes. Now that I've told you about China's cultural overview and their communicative behaviors, let me talk about a few current events going on in the country. Recently in China, Chinese workers have staged protests over unpaid wages as economic situations become worse with the recent tariffs going on with the US and China. According to a 2025 report by Radio Free Asia written by Qian Lang, published on May 21st, there has been growing wage protests in China as workers respond to economic pressure and unpaid wages. As an example, local governments like the village committee of Pingtang and Gushan town have issued fees like parking fees intended to increase funds from its citizens when the local citizens lack those funds because of unpaid wages. Many citizens around the area have deemed the actions illegal, which forced the local government to investigate the situation. As noted by Misa Naragami and Joseph Waldi Rami in the May 21st article for the Business and Human Rights Resource Center, U.S. tariffs triggered factory shutdowns, non-payment of wages, and protests among Chinese workers. As factories weren't receiving orders due to tariffs, they began having to relocate and not pay their workers. Though companies can pull through financial issues like tariffs being placed, the damage done to their individual workers are irreparable. While there may not be a direct solution to the damage done to the workers, the companies are urged to join Pay Your Workers campaign to guarantee a stable source of income for their workers, even if there's a economic problem. With that said, let me conclude. First, I told you about the Chinese cultural overview. Then I told you about their communicative behaviors. Lastly, I told you about events taking place in the country. By looking at these three aspects of China, we gain a clear understanding of how they play a role in shaping life in China as we know today. Thank you.